If you have a child with autism, it's also really likely they're dealing with low muscle tone, poor coordination, maybe delayed motor milestones as well. You've probably tried other therapies and different maybe medications even, but they're still stuck. You feel like there's something missing. This video is for you. I want to share a new perspective, how it's probably a missing piece that is going to help you break through those plateaus that you've experienced. And, I thought what better place to do this video than the Thrive play area, because that's where a lot of those early motor milestones in low tone show up. Maybe it's the W sitting, they're not crawling and moving as they're supposed to, they're not developing that proper cross crawl pattern at all. Maybe they're scooting or army crawling instead. There's so many different ways that this can present. And a lot of people don't realize that something like autism, you mostly think of it with behavior issues or social issues or communication limitations, but there's a huge aspect of motor control and motor development issues as well, and low tone is really at the bottom of it. 50% of kids on that autism spectrum have low tone as well. So while we might think of it in one sense, I want to make sure that we're connecting the dots to what is really going on, and that is the link to this missing piece in the nervous system. What does this actually show up as? I mentioned a little bit ago, W sitting is a common one. We don't have that core stability and that tone that we should to keep ourselves stable in different postures. Maybe they were delayed in their motor milestones. They weren't holding their head up really well, or the opposite, they were super tense, super rigid from birth. That's a red flag as well, because that usually means there's not good head control. It's more like they're tense and arching and stiffening and moving in an uncomfortable way, not controlling their head well, because then as time goes on, you notice they don't have equal head movement. They prefer one side or the other. And then that tends to be kids that don't really love belly time and tummy time either. They struggle with that, which means then they're going to have a harder time learning to crawl and sit up and walk and onwards. And that crawling piece specifically is so important. We need kids to learn and to check that box of the cross crawl pattern, which specifically means opposite hands and legs going right hand, left leg, and vice versa. It's not just they have to move, they have to figure that out in a connected way. So there's a huge common thread that links all of those motor milestones into more of what people probably think of with autism, which is the social communication factor of that. And that really is the nervous system. The nervous system, specifically the central nervous system or the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, or what we call the gas pedal versus brake, that is at the root of so much of this. Because early on as a baby, that nervous system development is what's controlling the motor development. And really vice versa too, because that motor movement, that proper neurological movement, is what feeds the brain. Movement is one of our biggest sources of sensory information. And that's why, as an adult, right, as a parent thinking of this, say you're trying to make it through a long day, you're trying to figure out and finish a long work project, and your energy is down and you're just feeling worn out. You don't have a lot of brain power left. Literally, this was me today. I did this afternoon to kind of wake up my brain. I went on a walk. I moved. Moving, walking, jumping jacks, moving your body around is going to give yourself way more neurological energy, way more brain stimulation, because it is feeding the brain and is driving that neurological development. So it's true for us. It's even more true as a kid, as a baby. They need that movement. So we see this nervous system connection early on in life, and it's often early in life that it gets disrupted. Birth trauma is a huge missing piece of this. We're not really talking about how there's a huge connection between if you pull a baby out by their head and neck, whether that's a typical vaginal delivery that just had the birth team, the doctors, the midwife's hands guiding that head out, or it's forceps, vacuum extraction, C-section, where it's way more traumatic and way more forceful. In way too many births, there is some sort of aspect of that birth trauma. And even if there wasn't, there was maybe an induction and then a prolonged labor where there was too long of those forceful contractions pressing in, creating that upper neck tension, which is the key regulation center. This brainstem area, the key regulation center for all things autonomic nervous system, gas versus brake, sympathetic versus parasympathetic related. So we see that connection, early life stresses, whether that's physical challenges, chemical toxic exposures, those can really set a kid's development off, not just in that early life phase, but onto those future developments as well. So there's a huge piece and a huge role that pediatric chiropractic can play with these kids. The goal of pediatric chiropractic is not to fix achy backs or fix headaches or neck pain like you might think of for an adult. The goal is to restore that neurological connection. Gentle, specific adjustments, wherever that stress shows up, restores that balance, restores that movement, and gets those brain feedback loops firing again. Because a lot of times those motor issues are at a root a sensory issue. That kid doesn't have good self-awareness. It's just why it's so common that poor coordination and poor athletic performance in older kiddos are going to be hand in hand with these things, because they don't have a good brain-body connection. They don't have a good self-awareness of where their body is in space. So the goal of chiropractic is just restore that brain-body connection. A lot of times parents that are showing up here, they've been through PT, they've been through OT, and it hasn't been useless. Like, they've made progress, they've made strides, but then they hit a plateau, they hit a stuck point, and then once they get that neurological piece unlocked, it is dramatically more improvements. It's so fun, our kids in that perfect storm, stressed out autism world, when they are coming back every week, every month, and saying like, oh my gosh, they hadn't seen this therapist in a while, and they just saw him again, and they can't believe how much has changed in a week or a month or whatever it's been. That's what we love hearing, and it's that combo effort, right? The PT, the OT, all those sensory and movement-related therapies are really, really good and helpful, but they're so much more effective and so much more helpful when that underlying neurological connection is clear and it's working as it's designed to. So if you're seeing this sort of low tone, these sort of autism signs in your kids, reach out. We are here to help. Thrive is a pediatric focused practice. We have neurological functional scans that are going to pick up on this nervous system disturbance and allow us to put together a game plan to get a kid out of that story of stress into one of optimal development. So we're here to help. This isn't a scan like an MRI where they're going to be in a tube or they're going to be sedated or anything like that. This is something that they're doing with you in the room, and they're just having an easy time of things. So I promise that is no big deal, and we've done it on all sorts of kids, super cooperative and super less cooperative. So I promise if you're thinking, oh my gosh, my kid would never sit through that, we have a version of that scan that will make it work for them. So don't stress about it, mom and dad. So please check out the article that we linked here, that's in the bio. Ask any other questions you have, and then reach out. We are here to help. Want to do whatever we can to get your child's healing journey started.